Before I get started, I want to make sure we're on the same page. This is a wiffle ball. It weighs about half an ounce. It has 8 holes on top, and most people think it's spelled with the letter H, but the man who invented it in 1953, who bet his home and everything he owned on the idea that Americans would like a baseball-like game that doesn't smash your front yard window, had to cut back on costs and let go of the H. And nowadays, 1 million of these are made every year. And for most people, it's a simple child backyard game. But for others, an estimated 40,000, the afflicted, who play in tournaments and leagues and who use radar guns and umpires and play in minor league stadiums, it's something much more. And for me, my midlife crisis manifests itself in, we're not going to get to one tonight. We're only going to talk about wiffle ball tonight. But in not in the ways it does for many people. No cars or affairs, but a newfound obsession and love of this simple game that I grew up playing. And so I found myself in my mid-40s signing my middle-aged school boys out of school on a Friday afternoon, and I wrote a family emergency in the registrar's office, and we picked up my mom, and who at 72 said without irony that I couldn't drive because I drive like a little old lady, and insisted on driving. And we drove all the way up right outside of the Bronx to Yonkers, New York, and we got there at about 9:30 at night on a Friday night to play in a tournament there. And we had never done this before, and on the whole way up, we're arguing about how we're going to divvy up the prize money. And we got into this warehouse, and if you pulled into this warehouse parking lot and just opened your eyes, you'd probably think you're about to get whacked. And we walk in, and we take the elevator to the second floor, and we see acres of AstroTurf and the leanest and fastest, most in-shape athletes I had ever laid eyes on. Division I college baseball players, former minor leaguers, people throwing this thing and making it dance at 90 miles an hour. I didn't, however, see any other middle-aged parents or preteen boys or arthritic grandmothers. And at that moment, I was reminded of a book I had read not long before then about the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. This was once the most fearsome battleship on Earth, and in the waning days of World War II, it was sunk. And its captain, Joseph McVeigh, was found himself tethered to a life raft with these young teenage sailors in this oil-infested, burning water with sharks, and these young sailors said to Captain McVeigh, "Are we going to be okay?" And he dug deep inside of himself, and he said, "Yeah, of course we are." So I did my best Joseph McVeigh, and I turned to my boys and I said, "Hey guys, I think we got a real shot tonight." And I walked up to the guy taking the money, and he looked at me and said, "Are you lost?" And I said, "No." I said, "We're here to play." And we played for the next 5 hours. And within about an hour, guys were offering my mom a beer. And she was introducing us to everybody in the tournament. We met Jimmy Cole, whose Twitter handle is IT worker by day, national wiffle ball MVP at night. And we faced him. And we lost every single game that night. And we went home the next day, and I would turn on my phone, and we would start to do post-game interviews. And in the course of that, my mom would talk about her life, and we would learn about each other on the road in ways we never would have before. Not long after that, we played in another tournament in York County, Pennsylvania. This was about 2016, and we got there early. These days, if you go to that particular tournament, it's played in a minor league stadium. There's a press box. It's got tons of attention, but its first ever tournament, they only had 4 teams, and if they didn't get 4 teams, they weren't going to hold it again, and we were team number 4. And But we got there early, and so my mom said, well, Dallastown, PA is not far from here. And this is this tiny little town, 20 miles north of the Mason-Dixon line. She grew up there. It's about a 1 square mile, and so we drove there, and there was a light rain, and it was cold. And the important things haven't changed much there. The main street, the cemetery, the Catholic church that she went to as a girl to school. And she asked if we could stop by the church. And so we did, and we walked in, and my boys, without being asked, they put away their technology, and one held the umbrella for her, and the other held the door, and she was getting along very slowly at this point. She was in a lot of pain at this point in her life. And she walked to the front of the church, and we sat in the back, the three of us, and she lit 2 candles, and she didn't have to tell us who they were for. They were for my father and for my brother. It was a very quiet and solemn moment, and we didn't know exactly what to do or what to say. And so my mom ambled slowly to the back of the church, and she just stood there in front of us. And she said, well, what the hell are we waiting for? Let's go win this thing. And so we played in that tournament. Unfortunately, I gave up 15 runs before recording a single out, and we didn't win any games in that one either. My mom passed away not too much longer after that, very suddenly. And it was kind of ironic because one of the last stories she told us on the road was about her grandfather, Harry. And Harry Wooten was a bread maker, and he worked in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. My mother moved around a lot as a child, and she hated it. And she would run away as a young kid. And sometimes she would run away for more than a few hours, and her mom would get really worried. And so she would call her father, and Harry would never be too concerned because he would look out across the street from his house, and my mom would be there on the steps. And so he would bring her in and make her call her mom and let her know that she was okay, and he would pretend to give her a few chores to punish her, and then he would make her an Italian hoagie, and he would play solitaire, and she would do her homework, and they would just talk about a million different things. And she was telling me about Harry 47 years after he passed, at the fact that as a 16-year-old, she refused to celebrate her birthday until Harry came home from the hospital. He went in for a minor operation, and right as he was getting ready to leave, he passed away suddenly of a heart attack. And 47 years to the day after he died, she talked about her grandfather in ways that brought tears to her eyes. And I thought, my God, if you make that kind of impact on this world, that is what living is all about. And so for me, wiffle ball became, we won some games, but we lost far more than we won. And not too much longer after my mom died, we went back to where I grew up on the Jersey Shore. And this is where I first started playing wiffle ball. I played with my cousin. I played with my little brother, Pete. We would play on summer nights with the seagulls and the sun coming down until it was too dark to see, and then we would keep playing some more. I was a trash man then, and he was 12 years old working as a dishwasher. We would play and play and play. We would play 7-game series of 7-game series, and we'd always stretch them out to 49 games. And here a generation later, we came back to that same place to play in a wiffle ball tournament. And this is a huge tournament with more than 100 teams. We had played in it 3 years. The first 2 years, we didn't win a game. Year number 3, after my mother passed away, something quite magical happened. And we made the playoffs of this tournament, which was unheard of. Everybody was shocked. And the first team we faced was a bunch of Division I college baseball players from Northeastern University. And I overheard one of the guys saying he thought he should rest his arm for this game because he wanted to get ready for the next. Well, he had plenty of time to rest because we dispatched them too. The next team was the defending tournament champs. We beat them too. And by then, crowds of people were coming to watch us, and friends and family, and it was truly one of the most joyous events of my life. And our luck ended at that point, but it was a great time. And on the way back, we would just talk about life and love and loss. We would be away from home. We would talk about the things that mattered. And that night, after that tournament in Sea Isle, I went and I looked up an email I had sent to my mom after the tournament in Yonkers. And by the time we got out of that warehouse, it was about 2:30 in the morning. We didn't know where we were going to stay. And my two boys and my mom lined up for a silly pose. They're all holding wiffle ball bats, and they've got this big, huge smiles and scrunched up faces. And I emailed her that photo, and I said, "Thanks, Mom." And her reply was, "We'll always have Yonkers." And so, thank you.